guys, today on the last video of Valorreak, that is for the landscape, we still got a lot for the dragon layers and stuff. We're going to be looking at the springs, the 11 springs of Valorreak, where much life lives by and in. Now let's get into it. The first spring we got is the life spring all the way up in the Grey Rock Plains. This spring has piranha-like creatures that are 20 feet tall and 50 feet long. They're long. There's hundreds of them, and they'll maul you to bits. They're basically piranhas. They're cyclopses and unique for the creatures I usually do, you could say. But there's other creatures too, more basic marine or salamander life, or crocodiles even. But not too much for the life spring, but all these springs are very deep, of course, with only a few being shallow. But this is a deep spring, and let's move on to the next one. The Earth Rock Plains Spring, also known as the Earth Spring. This spring is very similar to the Life Spring, but it's one of the deepest springs, and a couple of different marine, salamander, whatnot creatures and stuff. But next is the Hollow Spring in Spider Hollow. This spring is real shallow, doesn't have those giant piranha-like creatures, but basically it's the same. Then the Worm Spring, which is shallow, basically the same thing as the Hollow Spring, but hardly any creatures because of the worms. And then, moving over here, we got the Black Spring, which basically the same thing as the Grey Rock Plains. Just maybe a few different creatures live and visit it. Then, over here in the Gloomy Spring, in the Black Mountains, it's a very deep spring filled with those piranha-like creatures and other abominations. Probably one of the most unique springs in terms of big creatures. But about the same. Moving on to the Gemstone Spring in the Gemstone Peaks. It's more shallow, basically the same thing as some of the other shallow ones, but it has gemstones glistening all over the bottom, and has some creatures that live in it that look more like the creatures in the peaks themselves. Then, moving on to the Great Spring in the Gloom Moss Jungle. It's basically same drill as basically the same drills like the Life Spring. It's deeper though, filled with the piranha-like creatures and other creatures that kind of resemble the biome, or region as some call it. Then, over here in the Thorn Jungle, the Thorn Spring, literally the same thing as the Life Spring, except maybe less of the piranha-like creatures, but maybe more various thorn-like marine creatures and whatnot. Then, in the Dark Dragon's Peaks, way up here, we got the Abyssal Spring. The Abyssal Spring is incredibly deep, very deep, and basically it's pretty much the same thing as the Gloomy Spring, way up there, but slightly different things. It's like the deepest spring in the land. Well, in the land under the earth, that is. And finally, we got the Boiling Spring. The Boiling Spring is, well, boiling, first of all, but it never evaporates. And instead of the piranha-like creatures that live there, there's other predators more adapted to this volcanic place, and more predators and marine creatures than usual that are, of course, adapted to kind of resemble the dragon's wastes. But dragons love to bathe here all the time, so most of the time you'll find a dragon just swimming in the water. Well, dragons that belong to this region, that is. The 6 that live here. But that's all for today's video. Like and subscribe. And